but also each time we include additional sites, which imposes on us a lot more demand and rigors. And we tripled the number of sites we had under our scope and have been recommended for certification of those additional sites last Friday. And so this is where we're going with our quality management and technology. I know I've been here for a while, so I'm going to just briefly say that significant investment has been made in our technology infrastructure, setting up our back end and stuff like that. I think we probably are the envy, not probably, we are the envy of the Caribbean in terms of our technology outlay and our use of technology. Thank you. And I must say, not only do we acquire technological tools and infrastructure, our people are among some of the best technology. Much of our infrastructure, we maintain them. Much of our software and services delivered by technology, we build them. And so we have probably the largest technology firm in Jamaica right now, our technology branch and stuff. So those three pillars, we believe that if we get all these things right, then we shall be way on our journey of transformation.
Wow, that's excellent news. Can I get a round of applause? So I know, Commissioner, that one of the initiatives under your leadership is a plan to secure Jamaica. And I know technology is a big part of that, but could you give us some more insight into what Plan Secure Jamaica entails and what are the objectives?
Excellent. Whilst I'm tempted to take credit for Plan Secure Jamaica under my leadership, it goes way beyond the Jamaica Constabulary Force. It goes beyond me. Plan Secure Jamaica is actually a government-wide plan looking at all aspects of security and an investment in security. And it dates back a couple of years, maybe about 6 years and stuff. It includes 4 basic pillars. You look at crime reduction. It also involves border security. The third pillar is around cyber defense and cyber intelligence. And then the final pillar is around technology. And so much of the areas on the Plan Secure Jamaica, much of what I'm telling you about now, it is within the remit of the JCF's responsibility in pursuit of that. But entities like the Jamaica Defense Force also comes under that. And with respect to border security, we have seen significant investment in looking at shoring up our maritime security apparatus. They have benefited from that. Coming out of that is things like our cyber academy that exists within the JDF. And the idea is to optimize on resource. And so rather than each agency of the state between MOCA, JCF, JDF have their own silo capability, what we do, we build capability that serves security in the region, and that's the whole idea of it. And so, so we do our handshake. So the Cyber Academy at the JDF is not to train JDF persons only, but for cyber defense and cyber intelligence and stuff. So in a sense, it's a huge project, significant expenditure, and I must say, particularly where the JCF is concerned, we have been progressing quite well in the areas in Plan Secure Jamaica that we are responsible for.
Excellent, excellent. I did say in your introduction that you've gone 100 days as commissioner, and I'm listening to you, and quite a bit has been achieved, sir. And I think you have enjoyed quite a bit of success since you've been in those 100 days. What have been some of the challenges?
Police in Jamaica is a challenge. It is difficult, but that's what we're here for, right? The ordinary do the difficult, police do the impossible, and so there are challenges. We look at challenges as opportunity, but one of the most significant challenge is changing the narrative. We have made extensive effort many times sitting with persons who carry and educate our public. And after such enlightened discussion, the result of what you hear, you wonder if your communication was not effective and stuff. So there is a narrative out there that really doesn't describe who we are. Of course, we see things that are unfortunate, and that is why we have to be very, very forceful when it comes to protecting our goodwill and our image. A single incident sometimes characterizes the force itself, and it takes away from the true narrative. And it's significant, particularly with the diaspora, because, I know the diaspora, and I must say I really appreciate the interest that the Jamaica diaspora has in Jamaica. The pride that we see when persons here, and they always want to help. And so people always come to you and, how can we help and stuff like that. I believe that for us to craft a credible solution, we must properly define the problem. Else you throw resources unnecessarily at things which are not problem. No, the challenge we have is that when the narrative doesn't fit the reality, then the support that you get. And so with all of that explain around technology, I've had persons call me and say that they know an office getting rid of some computers, and they know that JCF not really have those things, so can we send you some old computers and stuff. Now, if the narrative about who we are was changed, then the offer of support would be, consistent. Of course, we're not perfect. A lot of areas that we see that we can improve on. And even whilst we're ISO 9001 certified, up to this morning, I've had reason to have dialogue with members that their actions that are inconsistent with our quality management system. So you're going to have that. We have over 15,000 persons in the organization. You're going to find elements. So the challenge is, how do we have persons understand the organization as we understand it? All right? That's one of the biggest challenge, communication. And so, as I said before earlier, we look at challenges as opportunity. And so one of the opportunities we seize from that is improving our communication, improving the discussion, the dialogue. And as a result of that, last year, we won the Media Marketing Award in the entire Jamaica, our JCF, led by our Constable Communication Unit. And so the conversation has started. Our social media sites have been active. We go out and have discussion with our members and our wider public in order to, improve the information that is out there. But it's in addition to the external narratives, sometimes it's so overwhelming that our own members sometimes believe. And so one of the first order of business for me is to improve that internal communication. And so I've been out there on the street with my team, speaking with every available police at various conferences and forums. We introduced a corner, a column in our force orders where we take the opportunity to have dialogue with our members, speaking to them about rationale, what thinking went behind some decisions that we've taken at the High Command, invite feedback from them. We have had proposals being sent to us, and persons see those proposals undergo significant discussion and become policies, knowing that it came from them, and so that bring them on board with what you're doing and stuff like that. So, this is how these are some of the major challenges, and this is how we try to turn the lemon into lemonade.
Absolutely. If you've ever seen Wanted Wednesday, put up your hand. I know. It's one of their effective communication campaigns, and I love it. We have to go, Commissioner. They've given us the wrap up, but I have to ask you, what can the diaspora do?
Okay, great. So you heard the challenges. One of the first things we want is we need the diaspora to assist us in dispelling that, just a communication. What message do we carry? It's a powerful group. I have friends in the diaspora. I travel sometimes, and when I hear a description of Jamaica and the organization. I wonder if it's the same person I'm going back and stuff. So we, so we need to help in doing that. But also, you know, we always say as an organization, the best way to help the police is to help the communities that we police. All right? And so if the support for the community, if the community infrastructure that should be there is there, then it makes our job that much easier. And that's why we deliver so many services, because of some void that we have to fill as police officers. And so I want to point you to the STAR project, the Social Transformation and Renewal Project, STAR. Now, we are as part of STAR as any other entity. STAR was born out of a discussion with the private sector organization of Jamaica and the Jamaica Constabulary Force High Command in looking at the very same question that you asked: how can the private sector assist us? All right? And in deliberating and in discussion, we decided collectively that the best way to help the police, rather than painting a station and stuff like that, is to help the community that we police. And that's how STAR was born. All right? I co-chair the oversight board with Sakit Duncan. Both of us share the oversight board, but it has been working wonders. This is a significant, very, very impressive program. One of the elements of the STAR project that is profound is that we do not impose solution to communities. What we do, there's a session where we engage communities to identify their own problem, create a facilitating environment so that the solutions for those problems are derived from the communities, and then we help them to build community programs, project. And so, thank you. And so they develop their community plans, and we help them in executing those plans. There's one element in the STAR project that the JCF consistently insists on, and it is leaving tangible benefits in that social intervention in that community. Too often we have had social intervention where most of the funds and all of that resource goes to administrative costs, training some people and leave. We insist that there must be economic viability, and it doesn't have to be finding jobs for persons, but also creating entrepreneurial opportunities. And so there's an entire arm of STAR that looks at economic development, job creation, and stuff like that, and we insist on that. And it has been working wonders. So I invite members of the diaspora. Right? I'd ask Keith and Safri to just send me a list of things. So I have not an exhaustive list, I think about 7 or 8 items that they send me where I see support can be given. I won't go through all of them. I'll make it's a 1-pager. I'll make it available there, where we can share with members of the diaspora. And it involves things like community center, building community center, creating a space for children when they leave school in some inner city communities and some areas where parents may not be available at that time. They may be at work and stuff like that. And you come from school into the community, even after significant investment in training and developing persons in school, then they come and they're in the community. We, the police, competing with the gangsters for the hearts and minds of these children. We need them to be in places where they are secure, where we can, on behalf of the parents who are not available at the time, probably have to be holding on 2 jobs and stuff like that. And so we're looking at community centers, building out facilities within the community where we get persons to help people with children with homework, get them occupied, free, just remove that space and remove that space that criminals try and to recruit children into these things. And so this is one area I think we would welcome support. And I will be, I've been invited to do a town hall meeting in Broward for persons who are in Florida or southern part of the US. I really hope that you can be there where we can explore a lot more some of these PQT and where we're going and stuff like that. And I must warn you, it's a 2.5-hour presentation. And so you'd have to be able to tolerate that. But it's going to be a good opportunity. I look forward to, speak to members of the diaspora on, a more intimate basis in the different areas and stuff. And there we can emerge some strategies that we can develop together.
All right, I want to thank you, Dr. Blake. I know I've kept you longer than you should be here. So may we have a round of applause for our commissioner?
Thank you very much.
Dr. Blake. Our plenary session will also be addressing issues of security. And so after that session, we will take the questions from the audience. So we move into achieving lasting peace and citizen security in partnership with the diaspora. We'll be highlighting innovative initiatives and technological solutions aimed at overcoming long-standing barriers to peace and citizen security in Jamaican communities. The expert panel will be comprised of Mr. Fitz-Bailey, OD, MSc, ASC, Deputy Commissioner of Police. Mr. Delroy Simpson, Chief Technical Director, the Ministry of National Security. I also like to welcome Ms. Shauna Travers, Chief Technical Director of the Ministry of National Security. Mr. Kevin Juna, Sector Lead for Peace, Citizen Security. And this session will be moderated by Mrs. Elaine Oxamendi-Vishay, Head Corporate Services Division, Ministry of National Security.
We acknowledge the Commissioner of Police, ministers, senators, permanent secretaries, senior technical officers in the Ministry of National Security, members of the diaspora, panelists, the media, and all other stakeholders. Welcome to this signature event and the 10th staging of the Diaspora Conference. This afternoon, our attention turns to a burning topic, that of security, one which we can agree from the onset that there is no silver bullet. Today, seated for this plenary, which is poised to be intense, deliberate, and purposeful, as we interrogate the issue of achieving lasting peace and citizen security in partnership with the diaspora, we have Deputy Commissioner of Police, Fitz-Bailey, a stalwart in crime fighting, and an architect for implementing strategies that has led to the downward trend in murders. Sharing on stage is Mr. Kevin Juna, a decorated military strategist, a man of the soil who served in the Canadian Forces and was deployed as a senior military advisor to the Republic of Sierra Leone, Armed Forces, and Jordan. A retired senior military advisor, he now serves as superintendent with the Ministry of Corrections in Ontario. Representing the Ministry of National Security, we have two chief technical directors. As we balance the gender equation, we have with us Ms. Shauna Travers, a policymaker who has developed anti-crime strategies and that steers the youth away from a life of crime and to more lucrative alternative economic activities. Ms. Travers is an ideator and has been tasked and has, I would say, managed tremendously the case management program that is within the Ministry of National Security. And we can agree that the case management program that Ms. Trowers has implemented has been reaping tremendous success. Rounding out the panelists is Mr. Delroy Simpson, a consummate strategist, a seasoned civil servant who has brought to fruition several construction and technology projects valued of billions of dollars. Mr. Simpson is what we say is a brand name in the affairs of law enforcement, and he is known for getting things done. To set the tone, ladies and gentlemen, we will ask each panelist to set their tone, their raison d'etre, as to why they are here, what they're doing, their contribution. After their 5 minutes has expired, I will ask one question, just to get you in the groove of asking questions. And we anticipate that this is something that you will be doing. Ladies and gentlemen, I am Elaine Oxamendivise, and it is my pleasure to host this plenary. DCP Fitzpailey, your 5 minutes, sir.
Thank you very much. Let me say good afternoon to everyone and to my fellow panelists. Crime is not a police problem, but a societal problem. And there are many root causes that have been identified for the proliferation of crime within our country. And we could drill down on a number of them, such as the socio-economic factors. We can look at social inequity, family dynamics, and community environment. Look at the family structure, which is so important. Community influence, cultural factors, policy and legal framework, among other issues. And so crime is a very complex problem that cannot be effectively addressed by policing alone. In fact, as we look at crime, we have to look at not only enforcement, but we have to look at prevention. So crime control and prevention is very critical. Law enforcement can respond to and deter criminal activities, but lasting solutions require addressing the root causes of crime embedded in societal structures. This necessitates a holistic approach involving a number of things: economic development, education, social services, and community engagement. I would just umbrella everything by saying that there needs to be a joined-up approach in treating with crime. By tackling the broader social issues that contribute to criminal behavior, society can create an environment where crime is less likely to occur. There are a number of things that we have embarked on in trying to address this problem of crime. We look at the legal framework. We have significant legislation that was enacted to support the police activity. We have an anti-gang strategy that was developed that looked at disruption, looked at diversion, looked at dismantling of gangs. And we have been embarking on a number of those activities. We have also looked at community engagement, which is so critical as we seek to address the issue of crime. So as we discuss this matter, we hope that some of these will be drilled down into in more detail. Thank you.
We hear from our military strategist, Kevin Juno.
Thank you, Madam Chair, Madam Moderator. I'm blessed and humbled to be sitting with the distinguished panel. Growing up in Jamaica as a child, it was made very clear to me that if I did anything wrong, living with my grandmother, she would correct me. If I was on the street and a neighbor or a friend saw me, they would correct me on the street, and then I'd go home and I'd be corrected again by my grandmother. As the DCP said, crime is not a police issue, it's a community issue. And because my family and extended family at the time corrected me, then it minimized the impact of crime on me and the potential for me to be engaged in crime. I was blessed to move to Canada when I was 10, and having the opportunity to learn a number of things. I eventually joined the military, and as I progressed through the rank, I was blessed to be at very senior levels and deployed to a couple of countries where my job was to build the capacity within the military. You've heard of the movie Blood Diamond. I went to Sierra Leone just after that to help to rebuild their military, build their capacity as a war-fighting organization. When the Queen Mom turned 100 years old, we went to Buckingham Palace, and my daughter at 9 years old, she said, "Daddy, we're not rich, but we have access to privilege." And I want to emphasize the access to privilege. Because of my training, because of my upbringing, I have access to privilege, and sitting on the Global Jamaica Diaspora Council, it allows me to use my access to privilege to help, to come back to my early beginnings, to give back to Jamaica. And in that, I listened to the commissioners speak, I listened to the deputy commissioner speak, and my role in this position is to make sure that the resources that we can galvanize through the diaspora would be able to bring in to Jamaica so that we can support and build the capacity here at home, so that as we fight crime and violence, we can do it together using what you have and the access that I have to privilege. God bless you.
We're setting the stage. We are setting the stage. We're hearing that crime is not a police matter, it's a community matter. We're hearing that when you're corrected by your grandmother and your mother, these things actually help us in life. Not too sure how that works now with the young children, because there's a lot of talking back. So we're going to turn our attention now to Chief Technical Director Shauna Travers, who has developed the Youth at Risk program, been reaping good successes, and hear how she's doing it on the ground. CTD Travers.
Thank you, moderator. Good afternoon, everyone. I want to share the sentiments of my colleagues here with me. So I would hate to have to echo again that crime is complex. But one of the things that I think Kevin said was the issue of access. So as we look at the whole issue of crime, we actually had to look at what are some of the social, cultural, and economic determinants of crime. Now, sometimes we think that crime is the same as violence. They're actually separated, but they're linked. And so the core of violence we recognized was at the base of crime, and we needed to get to the root of it. So we're really looking at sociocultural norms. And as our moderator spoke to, we had to look at, there's one aspect of crime management that is hard policing, but there's crime prevention that looks at how do we stem the upsurge of gangs? How do we cut off the funnel for the young people to join the gangs? And so now we have to really dig deeper into the sociocultural norms. And one thing we recognize is that most of our young, unattached youth needed a sense of belonging. And what does that mean? And I think that Kevin alluded to it. We had to now see what was happening with the individual, what happened with the family, what is happening at the community level, that then we saw the groundswell of crime at the nation or the national level. And so the case management methodology really built on what our commissioner spoke to, the plan secure, citizen security being at the center, citizen security centered, looking at the most vulnerable and volatile, looking at certain communities, and really targeting to ensure that there is access, because access also determines, because crime has an economic variable. And so we focus on the youth cohort, working with the Ministry of Education, working with our other partners, looking for those who through the school system, we identify that have challenges, that may have adverse childhood experiences, post-traumatic stress disorder, things that propel them to become violence producers. And our aim in this methodology is to address it before it becomes a crime management issue. And so the continuum of crime, the crime plan is one that, as prevention gives rise to management, it then gives rise to greater prevention. Our focus is not only retributive justice, but looking at rehabilitation, reintegration, trying to catch persons before they even go to crime, really building on that concept of the Jamaica that we once had. And so we really are focusing through crime prevention on our strategies, the case management methodology, the integrated approach to those that are most vulnerable.
We're guessing the story, and I hope you have your questions lining up as we hear from Chief Technical Director Delroy Simpson as he tells us what has been happening with our tax dollar.
Thank you, moderator. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. So we're hearing from my colleagues here that the multi-dimensional nature of the crime problem requires an integrated, multifaceted, and sustained response. And that response includes at least 3 pillars: strengthening the legislative framework to target serious crimes; 2, reimagining the approach to social intervention. We're talking about social investment now. Enhancing the capacity of law enforcement to respond more effectively. So I call this institutional strengthening, and that will be the basis of my contributions here today. Now, it's known that the JCF is our primary law enforcement agency, and they were experiencing severe institutional challenges. We're talking about badly deteriorated policing infrastructure, limited use of technology, manual policing processes, challenges in terms of manpower and mobility. An island-wide assessment of police stations in 2018 indicated that 150 of 213 police stations were in advanced states of disrepair. It got worse, 15 stations were irreparable. And so in response, the ministry launched what we call Project ROC: Rebuild, Overhaul, and Construct. And we also formed strategic partnerships with the NHP and JC, because the problem was so grave. And since then, I'm pleased to report that 148 major renovation projects have been completed at a cost of just over $2 billion. We remain on track to complete the construction of 9 stations at a cost of $1.3 billion by the end of this financial year. 5 new stations are currently going through the public investment process, and works have commenced on 2 mega facilities in the Westmoreland and the St. Catherine North divisional headquarters, cumulatively valuing $5 billion. Doesn't stop there. Specialized Operations West in Montego Hills, that is currently going through the public investment process, and that project, the price tag on that is $10 billion. Another major investment is the construction of a state-of-the-art forensic pathology autopsy suite at a cost of $650 million, and this is now at 98% completion. So cumulatively, in terms of the investment in the physical infrastructure, we're looking at $19.3 billion. Now, the investment in technology, Commissioner spoke to it, and he's a very hard act to follow, but I will try to see if I can add anything. The investment in technology has been very significant. The tech build-out was outlined in an e-policing strategy that was approved by Cabinet in 2018. In the interest of time, I will focus on some of the major areas. In terms of CCTV surveillance, Jamaica Eye was launched in 2018, and since then, some 900 cameras have been installed on the network. By the end of this financial year, another 350 cameras will be added, taking the total to over 1,000, an investment of $1.7 billion. Another area of focus is the traffic ticketing management system. The ministry has introduced e-ticketing, which allows for the gradual replacement of the ticket. To date, some 3,850 sets of e-ticketing devices have been deployed within the JCF, and a new ticket information management system has been developed. Investment, again, is just over $1 billion. A station records management system has been implemented in 28 stations so far. The goal is to eventually replace that big book, the station diary. The JCF has to communicate efficiently and securely because that is indispensable to effective policing. Thus, the communications networks was another major area of focus. I'm talking about the radio network, the computer-aided dispatch system, and the microwave system. A total of 63 sites are now connected to the microwave. The total investment there is $1.5 billion. And finally, improved communication networks have to be complemented by adequate mobility in order to improve the responsiveness of the police. So some 1,437 vehicles at a cost of just under $4.6 billion have been delivered to the JCF, significantly boosting the force's response capability in the process. So what we're talking about here, ladies and gentlemen, is a sort of our crime situation would be akin to Goliath. And we have a JCF that is our David, but you can't send David into battle with the proverbial sling and a few stones. We have to give them way more than that. And that's what the ministry has been doing. Thank you.
So we're hearing of the David and Goliath, and we're on the winning side. Where's the David that is taking down the crime monster called Goliath? How are we doing it? Close to $30 billion have been put towards infrastructure as well as technology to improve crime fighting, to also ensure that there is law and order. We're hearing that there is a crime prevention and a crime management strategy that is at play. And this is targeting youth at risk. And we are supporting them through a well-organized case management system. We're getting our assistance and assurance through the diaspora. We have a military strategist who can guide a process. And we have, of course, the architects of the crime strategy as a part of the machinery of the Ministry of National Security. Ladies and gentlemen, this is really tax dollar at work. I'm seeing that we have 3 questions lined up. Questioners, 4.
Right, so we're going to try and take as many questions as possible. Can
Certainly.
I ask all members of the audience to keep your questions brief? Likewise, if responding panelists, if you could also be equally brief, then that'd be great, so we can get through as many questions as possible. Okay, so moderator will start on the right, and then left,
Yes.
right. Maybe 2 questions, and then the panel.
Okay, so questioners, I'm going to ask you to frame your questions in such a way that the panelists can do the immediate takeaway. You're at the mic on the right. Please give us your name and where you're from, and we will go in that order.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is George Rogers. I'm from South Lamar, and I'm a returning resident from Canada after 47 years. So
welcome home.
My comments will bear some of my lived experience. I am of the opinion, Madam Moderator, and I'm hoping that the Commissioner will be able to answer this question. The carnage on our streets, and I emphasize carnage, I firmly believe is as a direct result of speeding and, I want to say dangerous driving, but horrible driving. And if we don't make some significant changes, we're going to continue to kill people on these streets. Now, I realize, Mr. Commissioner, that in order to make a transformational change in an area like this, using your words, we need, number 1, either reallocating of existing resources or allocation of new resources. And I would implore the political leaders to please support this initiative. So, sir, my question is, could you give us your assessment of my thoughts of this correlation? And I must say that from my observation 2 years back home, traffic enforcement on this island is woefully inadequate. How might you and the senior leadership tackle this problem, sir? And we want to support you in every way we can.
Very good question, George Rogers, living in SAB 47 years back. Commissioner, may I invite you to the podium?
Commissioner, let me see if I can give you this microphone.
A long question about traffic and carnage.
Certainly, may I stay here?
Sure, certainly, Commissioner.
So I do agree with you in terms of the disorder on the road. Unfortunately, there's a legacy over the years that we're suffering from today. So in the past, we have had weak legislation in terms of penalties for breaches of the Road Traffic Act. I must say that has been strengthened significantly. We have had a new Road Traffic Act. Unfortunately, though, the regulation took some time, but it is here now. The challenge, though, is that it takes time for that to actually be effective, and for persons who are accustomed to a particular subculture to realize that there's a change. And people are seeing it, right? Things like suspension of driver's license. Some people won't realize the impact of that until 3 years' time when their driver's license requires to be renewed. And they realize that because of their behavior, that cannot be renewed. So you'll find some changes. Persons you've seen changes with are persons who are now trying to renew their driver's license and realize that the tickets that they have outstanding is impacting that. And so that will impact behavior. There's a theory called the rational choice theory. And it says that if someone is motivated enough to do something, as long as the reward outweighs the consequence, then they will do it. Unfortunately, over the years, our consequence was not as severe enough. And so the very same people, when they come in the countries that you diaspora people live, they drive differently. So we talk about enforcement, and many times we point finger on the police, and we accept any responsibility with public safety. But we also need to understand the entire ecosystem, especially when it comes to road traffic and public order. The police have but one responsibility and an authority, and that is to detect the breach and prosecute. I'm going to give some statistics. We prosecute. So in detecting the breach, all we can do is issue traffic ticket or persons to appear in court, and that has to be done with a justice of the peace. And so people say, why the police don't enforce? Why the police? Well, we can issue traffic ticket, right? Well, let me tell you, we have issued more traffic ticket per capita than any states in the United States every single year. Wyoming is one of those states, is known for its severity when it comes to traffic fines, and the Carolinas. We issue, in 1 year when we pull the statistics, we issue twice as many per capita in Jamaica, without cameras, but just by people writing traffic ticket. When we had paper, now we have electronic means where we cut the time from 5 minutes to 5 to less than a minute sometimes to issue a traffic ticket. And so since then, even that statistics that I tell you about then is way beyond that. But then guess what? We're coming off a system where a person could have 1,000 tickets. What does 1,001, what that one additional ticket going to do to change that behavior? Very little. All right? Not passing the buck, because there's a lot more we can do. And as we speak, there is an operation, I won't go into the detail of it, that will look specifically at that. And so, but we need more than that. We need sustainable solution. It can't be a reactive thing where every problem we just throw police at the problem. right? We probably are the only country that consistently have to have police at traffic signal, working traffic signals, just so that people behave. We need enforcement. We need legislation. Well, the legislation is here. Give it some time, and people will start seeing the severity of that. But the emotion that it invokes in you, don't multiply that by 2, and that is our emotion as police officers. Because we have a responsibility, and because we are citizens and use the same roads that these persons drive on. But things are going to get better.
Thank you very much, Commissioner. So we will take the questions right, left in that order. I will encourage our questioners to reframe so that they're pointed, and for our panelists and respondents to respond pointedly. I see we have almost 10 persons, and we'd like to get through all 10 and have their voices heard. Madam, please, your name and state.
Good afternoon. My name is Claudia. I reside in New York, but I'm just Jamaican. This question represents my mom, who's 80 years old, and too many like her who would like to return to Jamaica to live, but honestly are too afraid. What specifically could you say to her to make her feel comfortable and safe? The second question is for me. Systemic racism plagues the United States police. Black people are disproportionately targeted and murdered. Why then would JA want its police officers to be trained and to be educated by the University of Delaware? Why not look to Scotland or to the Netherlands, which has a more effective and compassionate way of dealing with criminals? Thank you.
Very good questions, very good questions.
Maybe the first one could go to Mr. Fitzbailey.
Yeah.
Why should her 80-year-old mom not be afraid to return to Jamaica?
I think
Yes.
the commissioner in his deliberation gave a very comprehensive reason based on the pathway that we are taking. But when you look at our crime rate, we are seeing a significant reduction in crime. In fact, in 2018, we had gang murder being about over 80% of our murder were gang related. Currently, that has been reduced to about 63. So the strategy that we have embarked on as a law enforcement body is working. Jamaica on a whole is safe. In fact, our crime rate is concentrated in some specific defined area. I don't want to use the term, in the inner city area. So the majority of Jamaica is actually safe. And based on this, the plans that we have and what we see in terms of the implementation of this strategy, I believe that Jamaica is the right place to live. And crime is everywhere. And I don't think in terms of the current, I remember the days gone by when our crime rate was way in the 60s per 100,000. Now we are going way down. We're about 30, in the high 30. And based on the plans that we have, for instance, this year, we are seeing an overall reduction in murder by about 10%. And we have a plan based on the plan that we have, which I don't want to say much about. We are expecting to see a significant reduction by the end of this year. So I will say to our grandmother who wants to come to Jamaica, Jamaica is safe. And when we look at the crimes that are being committed and the persons who are mostly victims of crime are within the 27. The majority of those victims are within that age group, 27 age group. And in fact, most of the murders, when you attribute them, they are linked to persons who are in conflict with each other. So I think generally, the general citizenry in this country is safe. intergang and intragang conflicts are the causes of the majority of the murders in Jamaica.
Okay, so we're hearing that we have a plan for a plan, that we cannot share that plan right now. But the evidence is crime is going down.
Madam
Murders
Chair,
going down.
there was a second question as to
There is
why-
a second question, and Kevin Jr. will take it. Thank you so much, Dr. Brown. But I think CTD Simpson wanted to lend support to what was being said by
Thank you.
DCD.
So we're seeing murders going down, but also other categories of major crimes. So rapes, assault, robbery, all of those have been trending down for a long period of time. And so we're happy now to hear from the JCF's perspective that murder, which is what gives us great concern, is also moving in the right direction.
I just want to make a final comment on this. Never in the history of Jamaica we have seen so many gang members, persons who are called influencers of crime, are now in prison. 5-10 years ago, you'd have heard of conflict with police and engagement, and our investigative process have improved significantly. All the top gangsters in this country are in prison behind bars. Commissioner spoke about capacity building, and it's through capacity building, investigative training, and the use of technology while we are seeing the result that we are seeing.
Crime prevention, crime management working. Kevin Jr., Delaware.
And it's interesting that you've identified that racism is prevalent, and it is. But within the training environment, there are two things that we train in. We train in technical competencies and behavioral competencies, right? Behavioral competencies speak to the way that somebody behaves, some of their values that they've learned over years. The training that will be delivered to the police will be technical training, because there are processes that the organization there has that we don't have here. So the commissioner spoke about it, and I spoke about building capacity. So building capacity is around the technical skills to be able to perform the job, not the behavior that you see from that officer in Delaware that will demonstrate racism. That's not the piece that we're going to be looking at. I'm here with my mug that says "Live Good," right? And as I said, "Live Good." As a Jamaican, I know that the way that I'm going to treat the person that is beside me is because I want to live good with that person. So racism there is an issue. We're not asking Delaware to come here to teach us racism. We're asking them to come here to teach us the technical competencies of being an effective and successful police force, which is very different to be managed.
So the long and short of it is grandmother can come home. We acknowledge Minister Kamina Johnson-Smith. Thank you so much for joining this plenary. The gentleman on my right, sir, your name and state.
Oh, thank you so much. My name is Leo Gilling, and I was just crossing the path a while ago listening to Commissioner Blake, and then I heard a question, how can the diaspora help? And the commissioner's response was something to the effect, and I can't quote him directly, for the diaspora to concentrate on communities and uplift communities, and also, not just to paint the police stations, but to help in youth clubs and so forth, to help youth and mothers. I guess this is what he's saying. But I wanted to verify does that mean that you're excluding diaspora's help directly to the police department? That's one. And then two, because I know there are many skilled social scientists across the globe who are Jamaicans, who are very good in conducting evaluation studies, qualitative studies, quantitative studies, and all kinds of studies to find solutions that can be recommended for policy. It doesn't have to policy delivery. It doesn't necessarily mean painting. So I just wanted to verify, what did he mean by this is the way that the diaspora can help? And are you excluding help from the diaspora directly to the police department?
That is an outstanding question, sir. Over the years, the diaspora has been very well engaged in supporting the law enforcement, crime fighting in Jamaica. As a matter of fact, I can give you an example where just recently, a consulting firm in Jamaica led the review of the correctional system here in Jamaica. And as a matter of fact, it wasn't all done here, but the diaspora was engaged in doing that review. So we had the leadership here from a consulting firm. 3 of the experts from the diaspora came to Jamaica to help to do that review, submitted the report, and the new draft policy that's coming out include the majority of the recommendation from that. I think we need from the diaspora, and it's a hard lesson to learn and a hard pill to swallow. We need a paradigm shift in the diaspora, in which we think that we've got all the answers and we're going to come and tell you what to do. What we need to do is to, and we've started the conversation, is to identify the priorities here in Jamaica. What are the crime issues that the law enforcement want to work on? And once we have those priorities, then the subject matter experts in the diaspora can say, I'm willing to support. And when you're willing to support, then you'll be brought to the table, sit at the table where you can talk with the commissioner's team or corrections team or the military team. And from there, we can develop a proper strategy to be able to move forward. And it's not just us saying that we're going to go. Now, I just want to add one last thing before I sum this up. When I was deployed to Africa and I spoke to the general that was there, he said, Kevin, I'm sick and tired of you people coming here to tell us what you're going to do for us. Ask us what we need and then help us to accomplish that. So as a diaspora, we have some very qualified people out there, but it doesn't matter our qualification if we're not coming in and do what the government has mandated and what law enforcement agency has been mandated to do.
We have started the conversation. We have started the conversation.
Bruce Barclay, retired JDF Colonel. In support of Commissioner Bailey, Deputy Commissioner Bailey, I live in Coral Springs, 2 weeks for the month and 2 weeks in Vineyard Town. And I sleep in Coral Springs. I lock my front door and back door. In Vineyard Town, I leave my front door open. It is safe in Jamaica. Questions, quickly. Arena Expo, is it going to be annual? 1, 2, if a diaspora non-profit fund is set up for the police force, will you accept the contributions of a minimum of $10 per annum per Jamaican in the diaspora towards your policing effort? A non-profit Diaspora Fund. I proposed this 6 years ago in New York. JN President Earl Jarrett took the first $50 to the JN program and it never went anywhere. I'm asking if we donate money, non-profit, to the police for policing in Jamaica, will you accept it? Thirdly, is there consideration for a diaspora intelligence agency? And finally, can the duty on CCTV be removed? I paid 100% duty on some CCTV cameras, which were used in a murder to help murder investigation on Sackville Road in Vineyard Town when the police were trying to find answers. Can we remove the 100% duty on CCTV so we can help the crime fighter? Thank you.
Very good questions. Commissioner.
Thank you very much. The question before this, I'm very happy it was raised. Lest anyone leave here, because I take responsibility for the message I sent. And lest anyone leave here thinking that's what I was saying. I'm very happy it was highlighted, and it was quite a lot when they addressed by the panelists. And so I'm happy for that. There's so many questions, Bruce. Don't go yet. You may have to remind me of some of the questions.
Commissioner, he asked if the expo will be annual.
Sorry?
The expo.
Oh, the expo.
Will it be annual?
We would love for it to be annual. But if it was annual, we would have had one this year, which we can't at this point. And so we're pushing to have one next year. You know,
Is funding the issue?
Sorry? No, not yet. There's a lot of things going on. A lot of things going on. And the expo, it required significant effort. As we continue, we'll get better at it, and it will be much, much easier. So we anticipate one next year. In terms of funding, bear in mind that we're constrained as a law enforcement organization. While it's an excellent idea, that is something I would want to direct to the ministry. And I'm sure there's a way that can be worked out rather than direct funding coming to the Jamaica Constabulary Force, because we have a protocol that we're guided by and stuff. But in terms of that for support, we have, as you rightfully said, Kevin, we have a long history of working with the diaspora for quality type support, consultation, stuff like that. One of the key elements in our strategy is stakeholder engagement. And that's why I mentioned that I was rambling on for a while, so I couldn't go in detail in many things. But when I spoke about the town hall meetings and the direct communication and deriving strategies from that, it is in view also in looking at how we can collaborate to support. I mentioned painting of a station and handing down of some computers. We know sometimes for the point I'm making is that, as I said before, the problem has to be carefully defined before. When we spend $11 billion in technology infrastructure, you want to know that before you determine that a computer that is no longer useful for a company can work with the JCM. That's the point I'm making. Understand us, and so we can have meaningful collaboration and support. Thank you very much.
There was a question perhaps for the Minister of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade on removing the duty from CCTV equipment. Finance?
Yes.
Okay. Minister, we're going to get you a mic. Courtney?
Thanks. So confirming that that's the Ministry of Finance that's responsible for tax policy. And I want it to be...
Do you have a position on it though, Minister?
Well, these matters continue to be reviewed. And certainly incentives to import technology that is supportive of any element of national development is certainly something to be considered. But I do want to emphasize that we are where we are economically because of very carefully calibrated tax policy as part of the macroeconomic reform that has taken place. So it's not every benefit that seems like a cost benefit would work would necessarily manifest itself in a balanced approach. It is an issue that's being considered in the same way removal of GCT for renewable energy, meaning anything that's positive, you consider how you incentivize and if you can effectively incentivize through tax policy. CCTVs would be a matter to be considered as well, but it is not an immediate agenda item.
Thank you, Minister.
Thank you,
And
Minister.
so there was another one on Diaspora Intelligence Agency, but I'm going to ask the question if you could catch the Minister, the Commissioner afterwards. Madam Chair, we can take the next question.
Thank you so much. Madam.
Hi, my name is Asha Richards. I serve as chair of the Global Jamaica Diaspora Youth Council. I'm hailing from New York. And my question is in regard to measures for preventative crime measures. So, especially in regards to vulnerable at-risk youth, particularly young men, especially in inner cities and increasingly in like Saba and Montego Bay, you have increasing youth that are affected by violent crime. Whether they have witnessed violent crime, they know someone that might have been affected or unfortunately murdered. These can have effects on their psyche, on their own mental health. And also, as aforementioned, a lot of the crime that we see, violent crime that we see happening now is in regards to reprisals, personal conflicts, and sometimes between partners and spouses. So in regards to crime, as aforementioned, it is a very complex issue to tackle. But I am wondering, in what ways is mental health being incorporated in preventative crime measures? And if not, what ways can it be added or increased in preventative crime measures? Thank you.
Very good question. CTD Travers.
Thank you for that question. So I agree with you. Most of the crime that we do see is influenced by a lot of post-traumatic stress disorder. So particularly you mentioned the West, and a needs assessment was actually done with the help of our partners, looking at the psychosocial across the island and some gaps identified. In the West particularly, we have provided for a St. James Wellness Adolescent Center. It is about 90% completed, focusing on a target group. What we realized is that we needed to get lower than what we started with. So the effect on the children, even much worse. So when we look at vulnerability, we start from probably tier 1, which means someone who has limited kind of contact with violence. And we go to tier 2, which you've had a lot of post-traumatic, whether intimate partner violence or violent community. And of course, our worst would be tier 3. As we looked at the school system, and this is where Ministry of National Security actually is working very in an integrated approach with education as well as the Ministry of Health. And we've recognized that psychosocial must be a mainstay in any sort of intervention. So we're not looking at intervention as a projectized approach. It has to now be institutionalized. Real social investment, looking at those in our population who need the sort of support, and just regularizing how we look at mental health. So in terms of like our children, as we looked at the geographic areas that we looked at some data and recognized that the same areas that we had high levels of crime, we had high levels of intimate partner violence. The same areas we had intimate partner violence, we had what you call violent-related injuries. So the approach was very targeted, using the JSAFE data as well as using hospital data. This is where you're putting data on top of data and really doing a sort of analytics to say, where are we targeting? And having found those communities, we needed to look for the schools. And as we looked for the schools, we engaged with the guidance counselors, we engaged with the dean of disciplines, we engaged with persons at the community level. And they highlighted to us some of the students that we could not have gotten any way at all. And as they referred them to our case managers, so the Ministry of National Security has case managers, And the case managers, some of them are trained in something called cognitive behavioral therapy, which is for the highest category of those who are affected by trauma. And what we've sought to do, well, we've impacted, and I'm very happy to say that a small number, but it gives us great hope. In excess of 300 students in the last 2 years. We've actually gone to these students and using this methodology, then go into the homes, because it's one thing to treat the post-traumatic stress for the student, but the student leaves the school and go back home. And that post-traumatic stress could be in the family. And we recognize that the family needs help. And so, yes, there is a very focused approach for crime prevention. And we recognize that not only mental health, but we have to do what you call wraparound services. The same student that may have adverse childhood trauma, other mental issues, also suffer from some socioeconomic issues. Also may have delayed learning. So we look at literacy and numeracy. And how do we actually work with education to tackle it so that we treat the different aspects of that student, the family. So it's almost like, where you have the concentric circles, we're looking at the individual. But in healing the individual, we're seeking to affect the family, the community. And then we're expected that as we increase this sort of methodology, it will take time, but we will see a systemic change in not only mental health, but how we do dispute resolution and just addressing violence, which ultimately would address some of the crime issues that we have.
Thank you very much. We have exactly 2 minutes remaining. So the young lady on my left, you have less than 1 minute to pose your question, and panelists equally.
I am Dr. Annika Harvey, Medical Officer from the Southeast Regional Health Authority. I have both a question and a suggestion. How important do you think is grooming and etiquette? I heard you made a comment about addressing the root causes of crime, and I find that respect and manners is lacking in the household. Even seen as the patients and even working at Children's Hospital, there's a lack of respect, right? I'm suggesting, or if it's not already in the plan, that you put that in the curriculum. This goes from cradle at the level of infant to the grave, right? And also require that students at the high school, finishing high school, sit an exam and they must pass it to graduate. I believe that when you implement measures of grooming and etiquette, it not only spans like learning how to use a knife and fork, but also conflict resolution, help to resolve conflict and so on. So that's my suggestion. And that's all I have to say, and thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, this brings us to the end of a very robust, and I think you have answers. You know where your tax dollar is going. We can take the additional questions on the outside with the panelists. They will be available. And we know where your tax dollar is going. We understand crime prevention, crime management. We see what is happening, and it's not just a police effort. It's all of us, a community that takes this crime for all of us to be the David, because there's no Goliath in this room. Ladies and gentlemen, members from the diaspora, I'd love to take your question, madam, but we'll take it on the outside. Thank you so much for being a part of this plenary.
Let's hear it one more time for our panel, ladies and gentlemen. I have to take this opportunity to acknowledge
When the game gets rough and this life just seems so tough, make we talk, my people, make we talk. When this town becomes an ugly place, don't let it erase the smile from your face. Make we talk, people, make we talk. Conversation is the key, a guiding light for you and me. Spark a talk and you will see. Conflict solver A to Z. World leaders master the art of self-defense just by talk. So people, make we talk. Hey, we're living in a world that on ourselves we must depend. Make we talk.